I went to the Art Institute for
cool.
audio engineering. I was originally. Wait, was that wasn't where I met John? No, it was Cashman. It was definitely Cashman. So I got to the Art Institute for audio engineering, so I wanted to be like a studio engineer for music, live sound production, all that stuff. And I feel that the education I got there could have easily been condensed to about 18 months at as opposed to getting a degree. You could have gotten a what do you call those, certificate of completions, or a certificate of like authenticity, whatever it is,
right?
Like that says, okay, Keem is trained in the art of Pro Tools and he mastered this software, he knows these technical things about how to operate a mixing board and running a console and all that good stuff, because there was a program in Phoenix, I think it was, the Conservatory of Recording Arts and Sciences, and I think it was either like 9 or 18 months, but you literally went there and you got down and dirty, like you got straight to work, setting up a studio, recording, mic techniques, the technicalities of running a board and all that stuff, and how to take it apart, put it back together. And I think that is undervalued in today's society because everybody wants that degree,
right? They
want that piece of paper that says, oh, I went to college and I went to, as opposed to getting the technical experience.
I just thought of something. It's like now we live in the age of like master classes and actually being more hands-on, and I think those are the best ways to learn.
Sure.
So I say anybody, and this even goes because I produce music.
Do you? Oh my God.
So when I watch people producing music, that's when I learn the most. Like when I watch like Sam Garratt or any of these cats like producing music and how like their workflow is and what they do, that's when I learn the most. I never went to school for anything, so I couldn't really tell you, but from what I've heard of, I heard it's like,
I mean, you can
terrible.
learn just as much in a time efficient way from a master class, from a 9-month program. Like you can, and honestly, I consider it better because you just don't want to waste time, especially if you're in the creative field. Like so many people are popping up, and the more time that you waste, somebody else is going to take your spot. So I think the quicker you can learn it, and if it's hands-on, it usually sticks as opposed to like textbook stuff. Like I learn more from just like hands-on, like, like psychologically than I do from textbook. I've never been like an academic person ever. So I agree 100%.
Because like, think about it. If you went to like a sound engineer that you loved and you loved his mastering and mixing, and you maybe try to hit him up, depend on how big he is, and he's like, I have $5,000. $10,000, nowhere close to how much, you know what I mean, college costs sometimes, and you got to sit with him for a week and watch him work.
Not in
you know what I mean? You know how much you'd learn? For a smaller amount of money.
There's a guy here in Vegas, Trevor Mayfield. He built an entire recording studio out of his house. He tore down walls, and it's a legitimate studio. Like he's got hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment in his house, and it's like in a town home, and it's like, but he has this thing where he's he knows all the technicality of how to put things apart, putting back together. He offers an internship program where you're like, it's $6,500 or whatever. I forgot how much it was at the time, but it's like, it's like a 6-month program. You come in every day and I teach you everything I know.
That's
all.
$6,500. That's it. That's cheap.
Compared to $100,000
oh my God.
to go to this
debt
college
that follows you. Yep. No, hell yeah. And it's hands on, and you get more. You're not in a huge class full of 30 people. You're hands on, like it's personable, and I 100% agree.
So you heard it here, y'all. Master classes.
I don't know if you've heard of Sound City. There's a documentary called Sound City that was produced by Dave Grohl. And
you'll love it.
Yeah, you'll love it. Yeah, it's basically, there's a studio in Van Nuys in the 70s and 80s and 90s. I think he just went out of business recently. But it was a studio where everybody recorded their hits. Like you're talking about Nirvana.
Everybody.
You're talking about Scorpions. What's the other one? REO Speedwagon, all the major acts of the 70s and 80s, they recorded there, and it's a tape-based studio, so they didn't record digitally, which is eventually what took them out of business because they refused to go digital. They were all tape.
Damn.
But I think some of the engineers that worked there, they never went to college for audio. They just like oh, there was an engineer there and I was just a runner. I was just a guy who was I was a guy who just carried things here and there, brought lunch or whatever, and eventually somebody left and I got bumped up, and and now they're like world renowned engineers. Like they're working with the best of the best because they were constantly in that environment, you know what I mean? So I do believe to an extent, like it's all about who you learn from and how far you're into too. Now, of course, you're gonna have those people who really don't care about learning, and they can be around it all day. They're not gonna take it to heart.
Yeah.
But if they're passionate about it and they care about it, it's gonna show.
No, for sure. Yeah, that's awesome. I need to watch that.
Yeah,
that seems interesting because it's true. I think like the more hands-on you have, and you just learn more.
Because your most experiences from when you did those experiences.
Exactly.
Every live show you did wasn't because you read a textbook before you went on. You had to experience that whole entire thing, the bads, the goods. So it's interesting.
Yeah. No, that's so true. And I think college sometimes can kind of sometimes be a little bit too formulated on like what you're learning, you know,
too binary, like no, it doesn't work like that.
Right.
Well, not to get political, but these colleges always have an agenda, and it's always about making money.
For sure.
It's always let's keep it staffed, let's keep it going. The quality of education, it's a lot of places, especially when it's a private college, it doesn't really matter that much.
Right.
Because there are those teachers, and I don't want to like subtract
They're
those teachers
amazing,
that really
personable.
love the passion and creativity, and they teach kids like you know, so I can't